gunshots, gunshots. You know what time it is. This one is about Larry Hoover, right? I've been riding the Diddy thing for a minute. That's because there's so much fascinating things happening with that. But this is about Larry Hoover, right? I'm going to give you all the history of Larry Hoover because Larry Hoover can get out of prison as soon as this month, October 2024. He's back in court with a mercy bid, right? AKA a compassionate release is what they call it in the feds, right? I think that's what Guy Fisher came out under. You know, when you're elderly and you show that you've been rehabilitated, da da da. I'm gonna break all that down. So this is gonna be a nice program. Make sure y'all sit back and enjoy the ride. If you subscribe, hit the notification bell. Hit the notification bell. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. Cash App is on the screen. Make sure you hit the icon to save it's created in 2020. Let's get this thing popping. All right. All right, so this is what it is, right? We're going to give you a little rundown who Larry Hoover is so that you know who this man is. This is a big shout out and a round of applause to Chicago. All right. And the GD Nation that will be coming together upon his release. We're going to put positive energy out in the air for Larry Hoover. This is for Larry Hoover. We're going to bring our brother home with our spirit, with our ancestors. We're going to wheel our brother home. He goes to court this month in ADX Florence. I was in ADX Florence with him. Let me tell you what ADX is like. We're going to ride. ADX is like this, right? He's sitting in a cell 23 hours a day. He can't picture or phantom anything beyond the four walls other than what they show on the TV screen and then what he puts together in his mind, and that's what keeps you sane or insane when you locked in a cell 23 hours a day and you have to really sit there and get with yourself. I did 5 years of sitting in a cell by myself, 23 hours a day. 1 hour a day out for rec, and that's only Monday to Friday because the weekends and holidays is not mandatory. So when you got those Christmas and New Year's that y'all celebrating, we on the inside dreading it because we can't wait to come out for that 1 hour, like how I let my little dog Kilo out the cage for an hour, a little hour a day. And he loves it. Go back in the cage, and he's a good boy. When I look at Kilo in the cage, I think of me. I was a good boy. They locked me in a cage for 23 hours a day like I locked my dog Kilo. Yeah, I lock him in there. So I know you rat bastards and flip-flop wearing in public trolls gonna say, how could you lock him in there? Because he's been trained for a purpose. He's being trained for a purpose. They locked me in a cage because I was being trained for a purpose by them. They was trying to break my warrior spirit by keeping me locked in 23 hours a day. They're trying to break Larry Hoover's warrior spirit. And that's what he has to show them now, that his spirit is broken and that they won. I'm just giving you the real. Right now, he has to humble himself in front of men that he knew at one time was his enemies, and maybe even still now. But if we put our spirit together as Black people, we could bring our brother home. We could bring our brother home.
And Larry Hoover won't be in Chicago for court. The judge decided to do it over video later this month instead. He's been locked up for years in the Supermax prison in Colorado. His lawyer said his hearing was his first shot since the late 90s, besides medical checkups, to get out of that infamous prison. Hoover helped start the Gangster Disciples street gang. Ben, Larry Hoover won't be in Chicago for court. The judge decided to do it over video.
All right, so that's where we at. Just so you understand, that's Larry Hoover, right? I'm gonna tell you who Larry Hoover is because everybody's yelling free Larry Hoover, but no one is telling the people who Larry Hoover is. So right now, I'm gonna let you know, right? Larry Hoover is 73 years old. He's from Jackson, Mississippi. He's a former gangster and the founder of the Chicago street gang, the Gangster Disciples. All right. In 1973, Hoover allegedly ordered a murder and was sentenced to 150 to 200 years in Illinois prison. A federal investigation later led to his conviction for running a continued criminal enterprise because after he was locked up, I saw this. Because let me ride. I feel like riding right now. I feel like riding. Let me pop up real big because I feel like riding right now. You know what I mean? This might be an hour right now because I'm feeling real good right now, right? I'm feeling real good right now. Now, I just talked to somebody yesterday and I was watching a video that I did with one of my cellies, a young man from out of Florida, and he was a real street dude. He was a gangster. But anyway, they put him in a cell with me. Speed it up. They put him in a cell with me, and they put him in a cell with me. We kind of bucking heads. So now I got to break this, little unique, down in the cell. So we in the cell, and he was like, "I knew of you, and I watched your documentary on A&E on your case before I even met you when I was on the street as a kid, and now I'm in the cell with you." That's how I felt, is the moral of me bringing this up. When I sat there and I watched the documentary they did on 60 Minutes on Larry Hoover and the Chicago prison system and how they was having the family day and the people was, allegedly bringing drugs and having sex, and they showed videotapes of them allegedly having sex and doing videotapes, and they was holding Larry Hoover responsible for that. And I'm in, I think Lewisburg at the time, and then I get to ADX, and then Larry Hoover gets to ADX while I'm at ADX. And here's a man that I seen his documentary, and this was the beginning of the documentaries on the street, people letting you know. This is the first time after seeing the documentary on Larry Hoover. And when I seen this documentary, and then I actually was blessed to be in the same building, confinement, prison as Larry Hoover, I felt honored as a real street trigger. You know what I mean? Just letting you know, I felt honored, and that's how that young man felt while he was there. Now, right? Where is Larry Hoover at now, right? Larry Hoover, like I said, he's in the ADX. He's locked up for murder, conspiracy, extortion, and a continued criminal enterprise, aka a CCE. That's where Larry Hoover is at right now. Right? Now, Hoover was born in November 30th, 1950 in Jackson, Mississippi. He moved to Chicago, Illinois at the age of 4 years old. At the age of 13, right, Hoover dropped out of junior high school and joined a gang called the Supreme Gangsters when he was involved in petty theft, and muggings, in other words, taking what the weak have, because that's what you do in that environment. You take what the weak have, and then you wind up with a mugshot like we have behind me. But now we're going to ride out, and we're going to give you all a different background, because I'm feeling good today. You know what I mean? So now we're going to do Larry Hoover, right? Now, let me tell you about Larry Hoover's criminal history. In 1973, right, there was a murder of someone named William Young. On the evening of February 26, 1973, William Pookie Young, a 19-year-old neighborhood drug dealer, was abducted and later shot dead in an alley near 68th Street and Union Avenue in Inglewood, a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, right? His killing was ordered by Hoover, allegedly, after his name was mentioned as one of the top 3 people accused of stealing drugs and money from the gang 6 days earlier, right? Andrew Howard was arrested March 16th, 1973, right? While Hoover went into hiding in Chicago. So, Larry Hoover, he dipping and dabbing and, he ride in the back alleys. You know what I mean? So now, on September 21st, 1973, Hoover was driving a stolen truck and was asked to stop for a traffic violation. He tried to run away from the scene, but he was arrested. Now, the police also discovered that he was also wanted in William Young's murder. So now they realized they wanted for murder after they caught him for that. Now, in October 1973, Howard and Hoover were both indicted for the murder, and in December, both were sentenced to life in prison plus 200 years in prison for that. So you understand how serious this is. That's why I tell the youth, don't get involved. It's not worth it. So let's put our spirit together. Let's get Larry Hoover home so that we could try and pray that the Lord bless us and we be able to touch the spirit and the soul of these young warriors we have to put their energy into someplace other than where they're putting it, which is behind the trigger and a bullet in each other. We ain't trying to do that. Hoover was sent to Statesville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois, to serve out his sentence, right? Now, in 1977, right, the Continuing Criminal Enterprise, right, the AKA the CCE, this is how that came about, so y'all understand. While in prison for murder on October 22nd, 1995, after a 17-year undercover joint investigation by the Illinois Department of Corrections, Federal Bureau of Prison Investigation, Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive, Hoover was indicted for conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, drug-related offenses, and continual criminal enterprise in prison. So this happened while he was in prison. So we talking about a real gangster right now. You know, we talking about a gangster right now at that time. But we talking about decades later where this man is reformed. He put together the Gangster Disciples for a purpose, and it was for a positive purpose, but it went astray. And right now, if we get, and when, not if, when we get this man home, you know what I mean? He'll be able to let the youth know where he's at because he got good people out there. He got a good voice out there. Big shout out to Shorty Dope, you know what I mean? Big Dirk, and Lil Dirk, you know what I mean? We gonna get Larry home, all right? So let's get this thing straightened. Now, so now they did an investigation with all of those people, right? For 17 years. Could you believe that? 17 years they allowed corruption and everything to go on in the prison. And then grabbed Larry Hoover and a bunch of others and they shipped them out and they shipped them to the feds. They felt the state wasn't capable of handling Larry Hoover in their Department of Corrections, so they sent them to the Federal Bureau of Department of Corrections. You know what I mean? Which is tighter, and they sent them to the tightest they had, which is ADX Supermax, where I had the pleasure of being with the brother. Now, a lengthy federal investigation using wiretaps led to Hoover getting arrested, right? Prosecutors alleged, right? Alleged, now remember that, alleged that his gang had 30,000 soldiers in 35 states and made $100 million a year while he was home from those wiretaps. What they was doing, right? Because we're going to ride. And this is a big shout out and round of applause to Bernard Goins. If anybody know Bernard Goins from Chicago, tell him to get with Unique Mecca Audio. Good brother, man. Round of applause. Round of applause to Bernard Goins. Good brother. I was in ADX with Bernard Goins, and that's who first hit me to the history of Larry Hoover and who Larry Hoover was while it was going on. As a matter of fact, me and him was watching it while they was dealing with all of that wiretaps and all that they talking about. They had it on 60 Minutes, and we was in ADX looking at it, and then Larry Hoover popped up. Now, anyway, he was arrested, right? He was arrested at the Dixon Correctional Center by federal agents and moved to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in downtown Chicago to stand trial for what he was doing in the state prison. So you know who this man is. But mind you, we talking about 3 decades, 4 decades ago. We talking about almost 5 decades ago. You know what I mean? That's where we at. So we're trying to release the man that has bettered himself and put in his time. You can see how young he was behind me when he went in. And look at these younger pictures behind me as they flash. Free Larry Hoover. That's how young he was when he went in. Now that's how he looks now on the bottom in that gray sweatsuit, the same one that Diddy is wearing in the prison. Because we all got the same uniform, so y'all understand how that go. Now, right? So Larry Hoover, right, is currently serving his sentence at the ADX Florence in Florence, Colorado. Right, that's where he's at. Now he had attempts to appeal. In 2021, Hoover having hired Bill Cosby's former attorney, Jennifer Bangine, tried to appeal his sentence under the First Step Act, but was denied in U.S. court, right? Harry Levensberger, right? Now, gang, right? Gang and its impact. Now we're going to talk about the alleged gang and the impact that Larry Hoover had. In 1969, Hoover and David Barksdale called a truce and decided to combine both of their respective rival gangs, Supreme Gangsters and Black Disciples, together to become the Black Gangster Disciple Nation, BGDN. Y'all got that? So y'all getting a little history from old New York boy right now. I should have been wearing one of my New York hats. Let's ride. Now, right? He deemed himself, right? Well, that was then, right? So the death of David Barksdale and the disciple takeover. David Barksdale passed, and then the gangster disciple took over. In 1974, after the leader of the Black Disciples, David Barksdale, died of a kidney failure stemming from injuries incurred in a 1970 assassination attempt, however, took over the reins of the Black Gangster Disciple Nathan. Larry Hoover took over as, the driver. You know what I mean? Somebody got to drive. Somebody got to drive. Now, he deemed himself the chairman of the crew. At the time, the disciples had control of Chicago's South Side turf, right? Under Hoover's rule, the Black Gangster Disciple Nation took over a majority of Chicago drug trade, allegedly, right? While incarcerated in 1978, Hoover formed the Folk Nation, allegedly, which added all gangs in his personal likeness and interest to relate to the BGDN, such as the Lady Satan, Maniac Latin, Spanish Gangster Disciples, Ambush, the two brothers, the Sixers, Simon City Royals, Northside Insane, Popes, La Raza Nation, Spanish Cobras, Imperial Gangsters, Harrison Gents, and the Latin Eagles. He pulled everything together, right? He formed the Folk Nation and allegedly put all of those gangs together. The Folk Nation maintained their ground from within prison property to drug-ruffled streets, right? So this is what they say. While Hoover was incarcerated, he ran the gangs illicit drug trade both in prison and on the streets, starting from Chicago's west side and later extended throughout the United States. So that's how they say in the Gangster Disciples, they branched out, all over the United States. Similarly, certain parts of the affiliated folk nation alliances began to expand to parts of the United States, including the Midwest, of which Chicago is in. As of 2022, Gangster Disciples has confirmed expansions of Indianapolis, Kansas City, Minneapolis, Detroit, Milwaukee, Birmingham, Cincinnati, Memphis, and Hoover's birthplace of Jackson. Right? The folk nation, including that of the Black Gangster Disciple Nation, also personified a rivalry with the People Nation, which included other gangs such as the mighty Black Keystone Nation, run by Jeff Ford, who today shares the same prison facility as Hoover and is also Mississippi's born native, a mighty Vice Lord Nation, Latin Kings, Mickey Cobras, such Southside Mighty Insane Popes, the Southside fraction were rivals with the Simon City Royals, Satan Disciples, and the Two Sixes, causing them to spiral themselves from the North Side fraction. All right, read a little bit of that. So bear with my reading. Remember, I couldn't read it right when I went to jail, and I learned to read and write right there where Larry Hoover is at right now. I learned to read and write in 80X Supermax. It took me over 30 years to decide to pick up a pencil and find out what the ABCs meant. Ain't that a shame? And that's what we don't want for y'all, so that's not what we're doing right now, right? So now, okay, the Gangster Disciples also engaged in city rivals with South Memphis crews, the Love Murdering Gangsters, formerly LMG Mafia. Disputes with the Black Disciples. Now, this is where the disputes come in. In 1989, the Black Gangster Disciple began having leadership problems as they noticed Hoover's leadership of the Folk Nation Alliance deteriorated once he shifted his sole focus towards the now splintered Gangster Disciples. The decline of the BGDN leadership influenced a majority of its members and resulted in the two gangs separating into the formative Gangster Disciples and the reincarnated Black Disciples, right? One instance of their split later animosity was a drug dealing dispute in the Inglewood neighborhood of Chicago's South Side, allegedly, which escalated into a shooting that killed several people. By early 1993, Hoover claimed to have renounced his violent claim past and became an urban political celebrity in Chicago. Hoover proclaimed that the GD initials had changed to mean growth and development. As of July 2022, Hoover confirms that he no longer affiliates with the Gangster Disciple and wants no part of the gang whatsoever. He also claims that he was no longer the Larry Hoover people sometimes talk about, or who is written about in the papers, or a crime figure described by the government. Many believe it was a ruse for his plan to have his sentence reduced, or either to win his appeal. Hoover is currently serving 6 life sentences at 80X Florence prison in Colorado. Now, Hoover's endeavors, right? Now, this is what he got. In 1966, Hoover's teachings were published in a book titled The Blueprint of the New Concept, From Gangster Disciple to Growth and Development. Right? That was in 1996. Right? In 1996, he wrote a book. Larry Hoover, his project. In 2014, Hoover's wife, Wendell Jenkins Hoover, created the Larry Hoover Project, aimed to give her husband this clemency and have his criminal history reviewed. Now, Kanye West's involvement. Let's talk about how Kanye West got in this. Y'all remember when Kanye West got involved in this? Chicago rapper Kanye West has, for over a decade, been a vocal advocate of Hoover's release from prison. On a demo version on his song Hurricane, which was meant to appear to his since scrap project Yandy, West suggested calling his ex-wife Kim Kardashian to help release Hoover following Kardashian's success at working with the former President Donald Trump to free a number of federal prisoners. On October 11th, 2018, during a luncheon with Trump, West pleaded for clemency for Hoover. Hoover's scheduled to make a rare public appearance in court on September, now it's October 2024, and they're going to do, let's ride. They're going to do the video, they call it a video hearing, because in ADX actually has a courtroom, and it has the camera, and it had the satellite and all that set up before the internet was set up. They had that back in '96 when the internet was just coming out, where we could have FaceTime monitor visits with the judge like they're doing now, and they banned it back then in ADX because they said that they wasn't allowed to have it because if the locals can't come in to see the trial, then it's violating the Constitution. And they won and they stopped using it. So I guess now that with the COVID and everything else, they could get away with using it with Larry Hoover, as far as instead of having to physically bring him there just to get him out of ADX, take him on a plane ride, even though he'd be handcuffed and shackled, but he'd love every minute of it, looking out the sky and just something different other than look at the four walls for 3 decades. See, that's how we treasure moments like that. Y'all look at like, oh, I don't want to fly, I'm scared to fly. We're dying to fly. Just to get out the cell, to look out the window, to see what's going on. Look at this old man behind me. And look how young he was below me when he went in. And now we have this reformed ex-gangster that know how to talk to the gangsters of today. And that's why we need to bring Larry Hoover home. Am I making sense with the words that are coming out of my mouth? I apologize for having to read a lot of that, but a lot of that I didn't remember, and I wanted to give it to you accurate because you know the rat bastards and flip-flop wearing and public trolls would be quick to jump on in and say, oh, he said this wrong, he said that wrong. And I just tell them, that's what you get. You know what I mean? And that's where we at. Been on here long enough. Let's get this thing moving. You already know what it is. If you subscribe, hit the notification bell. Hit the notification bell, hit the notification bell, hit the notification bell. If you not subscribed, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Remember that. Hit the like button. Follow me on Instagram. Unique Mecca Audio. Cash App is on the screen. Make sure you hit the icon, save it's created 2020, and cop the book of Rowan Harlem. You already know what time it is at rowanharlem.com. And you can get it. Amazon got 5 stars, and I feel like talking all in one breath because this is the way I was talking to Tupac, with me and Tupac putting together. And Tupac said he got rid all the way from the gut and keep it one breath, so when it all come out, it comes out like one fire. Even though it's just a sentence, it'll come out like one hot bullet. All right.
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime.
Fresh out the can of 26, he back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. An Instagram page and a YouTube you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself linked in. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca Audio.
Mecca what? Mecca Audio.
G's in the 90s. Drop top Beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was whining. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spend a couple bands on the Dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a roaring uptown. Baby horn uptown, Dominican bust down. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend a ear. He started in uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community yard. So we can give back to the